Now, I've been ringing the bell over and over again about the Islamonazi regime in Tehran. And this regime is not about to break out with nuclear weapons, but it is already there. And its enrichment plans are escalating because it now has reached the point of enrichment. So now it's advancing the actual enrichment activities. Let's take a listen at I-24 News in Israel and how they covered this. Go.
According to Defense Minister Benny Gantz, Iran has stockpiled 60 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, which is most of the path to military-grade uranium. So I think that if we're zooming out...
So let's stop a minute. 60% is the home run. Now, they'll want to increase it to 90 if they can, just to make a more efficient weapon. But 60% is weaponized uranium. They hit it already. And they've been slow walking the Biden administration. The Biden administration still wants a deal. Why would you need a deal? They backed out of the Trump policy, which was to choke this regime off economically and to make sure it would never have nuclear weapons. I believe the Israelis are preparing potentially for war. Are we preparing for war with anybody? Now, when I say that, the leftists will say, I'm a hawk, I am a warmonger, I'm a neocon. I'm none of those things. You prepare for war to prevent war. And I am deeply concerned that we are not spending the resources necessary, despite all the trillions that have been wasted, to put our military in a position to fight, if necessarily, and to use our advanced technology, if necessary, wherever we need to use it, in the Middle East. And I believe it's going to be needed against China, because China is looking for a confrontation. Go.
We're seeing steady Iranian progress at various sites in enriching uranium and building more advanced centrifuges. But on the other hand, we're seeing reports of consistent sabotage, which Iran has blamed on Israel, which are causing reportedly delays to the Iranian program. And I think Israel has made it clear that if a certain threshold is crossed, that would trigger military action from Israel's perspective. Israel has been consistent in that messaging in the past year and a half, and I think that is the message coming out of Jerusalem.
And let me stop that a moment. It's not so simple. Iran is a real country, and they have, I believe it's around 65 million people. They have a real army, they have a real air force, but they have a lot of the old Soviet, Russian, even some modern Russia, ground-to-air defenses. The Israelis have taken the jets that they have purchased from us, and they have adjusted them, if you will, to the circumstances in the Middle East and the circumstances they will need for long-range attack. So it can carry more fuel. That might slow it down, except it has strengthened their engines. And it's going to need a payload that can somehow break into these bunkers. The main site, I read, for the Iranians is 25 feet below ground, and it is reinforced by steel and cement. Feet of steel and cement. The question is whether the Israelis have a weapon that can penetrate it. They have one weapon we know that can penetrate it. Anybody know what that is? A tactical nuclear bomb. Besides that, I don't think they have anything. And the United States is not giving them anything. You remember when Donald Trump dropped that 1,000 ton, what was it, a 1,000-pound bomb in the Taliban to destroy this tunnel that they had built? And we got word, and he dropped it, and he kind of blew up part of a mountain and so forth with it. That's what they need, but they can't seem to get a conventional weapon just short of nuclear. But that's what the Israelis may have to do. And in this, the so-called moderate Arab states are aligned with Israel. Egypt for sure, Jordan, UAE, many others, even Saudi Arabia. They're sharing intelligence. They know it has to be done. The problem is they're not getting much support from our country because of Biden. So this could get very, very ugly. Meanwhile, the Israeli government has collapsed, which is a good thing. It is an impotent government. It's got way too many factions, including an Arab faction that's not exactly pro-Israel. And Likud, which is headed by former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is seeking to, if they can't pull together a majority, it's really up to Lapid, the liberal, who now becomes Prime Minister instead of Bennett. Don't ask me, it's so convoluted, it's almost like Italy, for God's sakes. But anyway, so the goal is, if you're going to have an election, to have one soon. And here's the thing, if they had a different system in Israel, you know who'd be elected Prime Minister? Netanyahu, it'd be hands down. But you got to cobble together your party. So it's a party structure, and the people who set up Israel, they were socialists. And they set it up in this very convoluted parliamentary system, again, much like Italy did. And so you have all this kind of representation, populism. Oh, populism. But it is a very messy way to run your country. Go.
Regarding your question on what would happen if a certain threshold is crossed by Iran.
So Iran is also saying that the U.S. is responsible for stalling the nuclear deal talks. Is this move by them to enrich this uranium reversible? Now, they've said just last week that anything they've done outside the nuclear deal is reversible. But can they come back to the deal from this, or is it too late?
This is a rather naive question in my view, because even the IAEA, the UN basically, their atomic energy unit, has said they went back, they found that Iran had in fact violated the agreement under Obama, when Obama and Biden were running things. They found evidence of nuclear materials in places that have since been abandoned. They wanted to go back, the Iranians said no. They wanted to go to other sites, the Iranians said no. And part of the problem is the Iranians have more than one site now. They have one main site, but they've also moved things to other sites. So this is not a piece of cake for the Israelis. It would be very, very difficult. And of course, you can be assured that if Israel attacks Iran, Hezbollah, which is 40,000 strong, 30 to 40,000 strong in Lebanon, much more heavily armed than Hamas. They've been armed by Iran for decades, that they will attack, that Hamas will attack, that all the other reprobates and terrorists will attack Israel proper. Tel Aviv can be greatly threatened. You can be assured that the Palestinians will attack. In particular, then Jerusalem will be greatly threatened. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Go.
The technical steps that Iran is taking are reversible. Any centrifuges that they build can be taken apart, they can be stored, and the program can be frozen. What is not reversible is the scientific knowledge that Iran is amassing when it comes to having a nuclear program, figuring out its various stages, activating weapons groups personnel that can take care of the various stages from uranium enrichment, which is the most difficult and challenging part, and that is a part that the Iranians have mastered, to building a warhead where they have not reached that stage yet. So Iran is making both
Didn't take North Korea very long. And North Korea had no money, really no advanced scientists, nothing. And now they're popping missiles off, ICBMs into the ocean, left and right, to show the world that they're quite capable of doing this. They've had some underground atomic explosions. And Iran, of course, and North Korea are in constant contact, as now are China and Russia in Iran. Go ahead.
And irreversible progress. And the irreversible part is the knowledge base. That part cannot be taken away from a country as large and as industrial and scientific as Iran.
Well, we do always hear that knowledge is certainly a weapon, but let's talk about the political situation in Israel now. How can this current political climate in Israel affect the Iran file? Can we expect to see any change in terms of Iranian tensions or what Israel chooses to do with its Iran file?
Well, I think that the Iranians will certainly be examining closely the political instability that is shaking up the Israeli system, and they're going to be looking for vulnerabilities and weaknesses, particularly after they've reportedly absorbed a string of quite devastating sabotage and assassination attacks, according to international media reports. They're certainly looking for revenge. And in Israel, I think that there's going to be a very strong emphasis on sending out the message that despite the political chaos, the government is fully functional, the cabinet, the security cabinet is fully functional, and decisions continue to be made in close consultation with the defense establishment.
Well, let's hope so. Joe Biden has been such a disaster. Here you have war where Russia invaded Ukraine because we did not properly arm the Ukrainians in order to dissuade the Russians from invading. And plus, Biden did a number of things signaling how weak he was. The Chinese have seen this. They are muscling up. They're going to attack Taiwan, and this is going to put us in a very, very difficult position. If we confront the Chinese, it might be World War III. If we don't confront the Chinese, it might be World War III, because they're going to see what? They're going to see what Hitler saw when he invaded the Sudetenland and he invaded other parts of Europe, until finally he invades Poland, and that's enough. But that wasn't even enough for the United States. It was enough for England. Not till we were attacked directly by the Japanese, one of their allies, did we actually get into the war directly and declare war. Now, the Chinese are much stronger than the Russians. They really have built up their military, their technology. They stole from us. They have cutting-edge sophistication when it comes to their technology now. Their numbers are massive. And here we are, focused on January 6th. Then you look in the Middle East, we had peace breaking out everywhere with the Abraham Accords, and they could have been built upon, and Biden blows it all up. He is a menace.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to LevinTV.com and subscribe now.